things. Right. So in this session, we want to open up a discussion around kind of future trends in our world of supply chain. We're going to be talking a little bit about technology, a little bit about organizations, and things about the future of work, think about disruptive technologies, and perhaps even I had a wild question from one of the panelists asking around perhaps the role of government in this as well. But I'm going to kick off, and the format we'd like to go is we'll open up a question, and then a couple of our panelists will address it over 2 or 3 minutes, and then I'll open the floor up both to the speakers, the panelists, but also if anybody on the floor has an urgent need to share an insight, please do put your arm up and we'll send somebody with a microphone, and we'd be very happy to also hear your input. I think it's nice if these sessions are reasonably interactive. It keeps us all on our toes. So the first question I'd like to think about is just, we're an industry that's in transition. We hear a lot about digitalization. It's kind of the buzzword, digital reimagination, etc. And so I want to split this question really into 2. I'm going to think first of all about what's really happening in the short term, and then we'll move on to sort of thinking a little bit more futuristically where might we be headed longer term. And to kick this off, I'd like to pass this over to you, Suparna, if you'd like to share with us your views first of all. So the first question would be just to say, what benefits can digitalization bring to the supply chain in the short term?
Good morning, everybody. Pleasure to be here. Am I heard? What we see today is, if I look at it from a customer point of view, and this is, I would say, would be, sector agnostic. Today, the customer wants faster delivery of goods and services. They want a single window, and they want transparency in the operations and the pricing and in the entire value chain. All of this they want at the optimum cost, and the value proposition should be appearing to be higher than the cost that they provide for. Now, if this is the newest trend to that is that logistics is no longer being seen only as execution model. Customers are seeing it more as a service proposition. Keeping in view all of this, what I see is emerging in the value chain of logistics is it is into throes of consolidation. It is into disintermediation. That means the intermediaries are going to disappear. And also it is going to be a technology-driven business sector where there's a lot of disruption which will happen to improve the productivity and the efficiency. So this is what I see in the short term and long term. We can always, of course, talk about the technologies that are coming up, if that is something that we can talk about now or later on.
Okay. If you have something to add on that, please, by all means.
You see, I'll start with what we have done in L&T recently, and then we can maybe extend that. That we have, out of 35,000 equipment, around 12,000 equipments have been IoTized, that is sensorized, in around 400 project sites. And each of these equipments are fitted with IoTs, they are analyzed, their data inputs are taken and analyzed. And it has taken a year or so, first of all, to get this idea on the ground to be accepted by the team and to train the people on the ground. After that, what we have got as an output of the process is that there has been a better visualization of the project processes. There has been more utilization, productivity has increased, and there has been right sizing, and also in terms of efficiency, you have seen fuel efficiency that has come in. So in about just 1 to 2 years, there have been crores of rupees of benefit that has come into the system. Apart from this, of course, the analytics part is also coming up in a big way. All of you know that's the big data analytics which is going to rule the ecosystem now. And we have drones that are coming up. Yeah, we have drones and smart glasses. We have the entire system of blockchain that is going to come up. So I think we all know a little about it because that is impacting all the system. In logistics, I would just want to leave with one thought right now on this point is that the interesting and emerging trend that is coming up is the last mile logistics, the delivery which is going to create an impact and change the entire the flavor of the logistics, because you are now not only B2B, it's B2C in a direct impacted manner. And the play there is very colorful, very interesting, and I'll be happy to maybe address more questions on that and take on that a little bit more.
Thank you very much. Then Mr. Suryansh Jalan, I'm afraid I can't see very well where you are.
Yeah.
Yeah, there you are.
Thanks, Richard. I think today, and this is something which Richard and the speaker before me had touched upon, I think we're living in an experience economy, which means that the buying behavior of consumers or the usage behavior of employees is driven a lot by how they are experiencing the product. It's no more, I like to say that logistics is no more delivery of product, but it's also now delivery of information at the right time, right? And one of the critical tools that can help in bringing that same kind of experience that you have, got so accustomed to with your WhatsApps and your Ubers and Amazons of the world into more enterprise businesses, whether that's internal stakeholders or external stakeholders, is the use of digitalization. There was a recent McKinsey study which said that around 43%, the average maturity of digitization across organizations is at 43%. And only 2% of organizations said that of our different business functions, logistics is something that we are focusing our digitization of efforts at. So what that tells me is that there's not that much core focus of senior leadership that has gone in or is still going into optimizing logistics. And that's fair because, I mean, when you look at it, the first step to be able to fix the problem is to be able to understand it. And because logistics has been so outsourced and, the data black box has been there where the moment the material leaves my facility or it's out of my hand, I have no idea about it. So how should I focus my effort on, optimizing something that I don't know everything about? Or should I first focus on, things which are more direct and immediate for me, like maybe improving the way the customer is ordering, if it's something which is B2C, or improving my production cost if it's B2B. So, however, now with the advent of Industry 4.0 and resultantly Logistics 4.0, where we are getting a more interconnected supply chain and there is transparency across it which is being built, what we see is that now all of this untapped potential, which over the years, because it wasn't a core focus area, it means that now all of that can be unleashed. So when we talk about benefits that can be got out of digitalization and not just using it as a fad or as a hype that we want to digitalize, we see that largely there are three things that an organization would like to achieve. The first thing an organization would like to achieve is having that visibility or having that knowledge on exactly what is happening so that I can then deploy my analysis or take some decisions on how to improve it. The second thing that an organization would like to do is to use these digital technologies to automate and optimize their logistics. So there are a lot of tasks which are performed on a day-to-day basis, which is very repetitive in logistics. It could be as menial as printing of documents, generating of e-way bills or things such as that, which can be automated, right to things a little more complicated around loading, etc. So that would be the second step where we are looking at increasing our efficiency, driving down costs. And finally, we want to use digital technologies to improve sustainability. Can I, for example, in last mile delivery, can I route my deliveries better so that I'm moving less kilometers and hence I'm saving carbon footprint. So these are all steps that we are seeing organizations take. And I guess no one in this hall today would say that this is all, things of the future. I think all of us over here would agree that we are sitting slam bang in the middle of this whole trend. And we've seen organizations that we work with, whether it's the largest logistics player in the world, that using just digital technologies have been able to improve their productivity by 15%. So you can imagine, a large logistics player with over 1 million assets working across 20 countries, just by deploying digital technologies, making things more efficient, they've been able to improve productivity by 15%. Or my next favorite example, which is the largest pizza chain in the world, which promises to be able to deliver in under 30 minutes. They've been able to use digital technologies to cut their delivery times further by 25%. So you can just imagine what that impact has on their bottom line, on the customer experience, on the top line resultantly as well. So these are certain things where we see digital hitting immediately, and bringing in that efficiency out.
Thank you very much. So if I can now throw this question, is there anybody else on the panel who would like to add something to what's already been said?
Richard, could I please step in for just a moment?
Please do.
A request that as our panel is already underway here in the leadership track, another announcement that the procurement track has begun in Salset too. Thank you very much.
Okay.
Just looking at more crowd. Thank you.
Thanks. And anyone from the floor would like to make a comment on this? No? Okay. In which case we should move on to the next subject. I'd like to talk about innovation. So we all love innovation, and we know that it powers growth. But sometimes it can be a challenge to kind of make it happen. So I think my first question would be, what is a good strategic approach to drive innovation in the supply chain? And this goes first of all to Jagadish.
Good morning. Thank you very much. Am I audible? So we all know that innovation is very important. So, but why do that most of these innovations fail? Some of the innovations fail there because of alignment there. Okay, just let me give you a brief context of the current scenario we are operating. I will talk about 3 C's. One is that we all want to win over the customers there, whether it is a consumer product, goods, or any other kind of industry. So what are the levers we have? We have got what is driving us there. One is competition is driving us. The second one is that customer satisfaction is the most important thing. If the customers are satisfied, then they will stay there with you. And if you have to win over them, then you have to overcome competition, and you have to be there at the right possible cost. So this is the environment which we are operating. So now how can you bring their innovation there into this? There in terms of supply chain strategy. So our approach had been like, your supply chain strategy has to be in line there with your business strategy. Let me give you an example. So I want to deliver there to my customers there that same day there that close to 100% that I want to hit that number. So that has an implication. That has an implication there in terms of cost, that has an implication there in terms of service levels. So now if I have to make that there as a part of my business plan, that if it is part of my strategy, first of all I need to be very clear there about that this is what is my strategy, and to enable this there is a certain kind of cost that which will come into. I have to factor all these things there into the plan. So how does supply chain come into the picture? So let me take about our example there in ITC. We have got products there which are ranging there from premium cigarettes there to salt. So each of this product has got a different kind of supply chain. So if I don't innovate, if I follow the traditional model of supply chain there which is shipping out there from factories there to the warehouses, there to the distribution centers, and there to the customers, that is a redundant kind of model in today's scenario, because that there are disruptive models which are coming. There are people who are talking about direct to customer homes. So now added to this, there is a complexity there in terms of, like in India we have seen, particularly there in the CPG space. We have a traditional trade, we have got a modern trade, we have got an e-commerce, and then we have got some other channels. So each of these channels present a different kind of challenge. And also that the customer preferences are there, like now we are having evolving customers. So the tastes are changing. So everybody want customized kind of products. Now if all these things have to happen, then your supply chain strategy has to be tailor-made there to the certain requirements there from the customer, there in each of the segment. The traditional way of looking all the customers alike and then having a common supply chain is not going to work. So that is where that you have to bring in their innovation there, that is this product, is my supply chain, traditional supply chain model right there for this type of product, or do I need to cut some boxes there in between? So that is what is that traditionally we need to do. And this innovation will result there in a lot of benefits. We have done it there for a lot of our products, because that we have got different supply chains there within a supply chain. So this will give you their benefits there in terms of your network, right kind of network. Of course, technology plays a big kind of role there over here. So you have got a lot of tools there that which are optimizers that which will help you there in doing all these things. So that's where we have seen benefits there in terms of having the right network depending on your products. And then after that, your network will decide that what inventory will you hold and where will you hold it. So that is what is the bigger kind of an advantage. And the other changing pattern is like our traditional systems were completely based on static estimates, or that Richard has mentioned there in his presentation also. There is something which is happening there in the market, but I am not able to put it there as a part of my plan this month because my system is designed that way. So our traditional IT systems and other things were designed there that way. Now there are innovations which are coming up. Now can I pick up real-time demand? Are some of these things there and incorporate that as a part of my plans? Yeah, of course there are issues there in terms of changes there to the production schedules and things like that. But the need of the hour seems to be there that as we are, as the complexity is increasing, this is where I think that technology will play again a bigger kind of role. But this is where we have to bring in innovation. Now, so innovation, I just briefly touched about that why innovations fail. So that is because that there is alignment. One of the strategies that can take what organizations follow and then bigger organizations like us follow is that innovation projects there, we look at it there at a central level. Shortlisting is done there at a central level. But however, the ownership lies there with the local level. So that whatever kind of convincing you have to do, whatever discussion and decision till the time you decide upon, that happens there before you launch an idea, rather than launching the idea and then realizing that it's not working out. So I think that these are some of the things that what we have learned there over a period of time, and I think that will become a part of your culture there. One enabler.
Just in the interest of time, can I pass the baton over to Deepak now? Thank you. It's a very interesting. I mean, I think you make an excellent point that as we segment supply chains, we're going to need more and more innovation to deal with these very complex. There are so many different ways of doing things. Deepak Sharma.
Yeah.
Where are you?
So I'm audible.
Down there. Yes.
Yeah. So for me, as per what experience I have seen throughout my career, I have seen sometimes strategies are working, sometimes same strategies are failing, right, miserably. When I was working with GE, with those golden days of GE, Jack Welch and Jeff Immelt transition and all, now GE is nowhere, right? So it's not like they were not having the right strategy and all. It's purely on the market, and it's very dynamic, right? So nobody can say this strategy will work. Impossible. As per my experience goes, what I believe personally, if you'll see the market changes like Alibaba, they sold close to 30 billion worth of value of goods in 24 hours. So what strategy you need? We in the supply chain, there's a data like close to 18 or 20 million worth of packages and documents are transferred every day basis, right? So what I believe based on experience is when you are crafting the strategy, first thing is you should focus on few of the basic principles. Your strategy should be very simple and you can explain it to everybody within your organization, to your suppliers and to your customers. It should not be unwanted, complex, so that you are not able to explain even your team. So starting with customer, yes, customer is very important, but don't forget the rest of the balancing levers in your strategy. The people, your partners, your suppliers, technology, and the most important thing nowadays is circular economy. So the strategy will go forward work who will balance all these levers. Generally, people believe that customer should be in the center and then rest guys, lever should be on the periphery. What personally I believe, your strategy will work if your people are strong, if you have people right training and right delegation to them. So whenever I make my strategy throughout my organization, previous organization and current, I keep people in the center, customer, technology, suppliers, and circular economy. Then you will find, because see what's the meaning of a customer? Customer is also a set of people, right? If you are able to manage people, your own people, they will manage customers very well. So generally what we do, we are so much of customer centric, we forget our people and technology and rest of the things. So what I believe, balance all those things and then make a simple strategy, basic strategy. You can add, like circular economy is very important nowadays. If you go to Europe, most of the company, they are floating RFQs based on sustainability. If you are not able to reuse the thing, you are not able to reuse the packaging, you are not able to cut down the plastics and other things, that's written in their RFQs. So you have to be very clear while making the supply chain strategy, circular economy or sustainability should be part of that. Technology is very important. Technology should give you, like Suryan said, it has to be digital but visible. You made your strategy very digital, but it's not visible to anybody. So that's again a mistake, right? So your technology should integrate your suppliers to your employees, your company, and then to your customers. So what we have done in our company, the strategy what we make is Admire. We have given a name as Admire. In that, A means analytics. The most important thing we should do the analytics after doing the market intelligence. So we do a lot of market intelligence, where our supply chain, what our competitors are doing, what our customer is asking, how things are moving fast, what new technologies are coming. Based on that, we do analytics, and then we identify the risk. What are the risks related to our business, risk to our product, risk to our competition, risk to our strategy, right? Then comes D, digital. Third is modular. M means modular. Whatever strategy you are making, it should be modular. It should not happen that if your business is diversifying, you are again starting from the scratch, zero, to craft a new supply chain. It's impossible. Customer or market, this world will not give you any minute, right? Your supply chain strategy or model should be modular. Then comes I, all whatever you are making should be integrated. If they are working in silos, you are again failing. Then comes R, is rapid, agile. It should be very fast, like last mile delivery. Nowadays, like Flipkart and Amazon and your Paytm and all, if you'll see, all are delivering the same mobile, same products, same Amazon Alexa. But when we see which one to buy, we see the delivery. Who will deliver me next day? Who will deliver me the same day? Who is ready to take it back? Whose reverse logistics is very important. And if you want to see such kind of experience, just talk to your children and your wife or your family members. right? Nowadays, because of this big balloon sale and all those things, I'm just watching my kids, right? How they order, how they choose which one to buy, whether to buy from Paytm, Flipkart, or Amazon. They discuss a lot and just listening them. And mostly they are discussing, okay, which one deliver me faster? And which will if I'm not happy with that, who will take it back faster and hassle-free, right? So that's the one. Last is E in admire, and it should means it's a extendable, expendable. When your company is growing, sometimes we make our strategy based on the current business scenario. But we have to see next 20 years or 15 years what will happen. Tomorrow if we are growing or we are diversifying, like you are coming out from manufacturing to channel partners, to distributors, to retail market, so any market, you can expand your supply chain to cater that 10x or 20x kind of growth. You should not collapse. When your company is growing, suddenly you will believe or feel, okay, this supply chain will not work to cater. Right now we are 10 billion, tomorrow if we 20 billion, we will fail, right? So your model should be enough to handle next 10 years or 25 years kind of growth. So my input is this one. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Before we move on, would anyone else on the panel like to add something to this, or anybody from the floor? Okay. So we've talked about digitalization, and we've talked about innovation. Now, underpinning all of this, and this is what I was talking about previously, is of course, we have people, and we're wondering what people are going to be doing in the future. So the next subject I'd like to talk about is the future of work. We know things are changing. We know that our children are going to work in jobs, a lot of which don't even exist or are unknown. So there's been a lot of discussion around this area. And to kick it off, I'd like to call on Kunal Shah to give us his thoughts in this area.
Thanks, Richard. I think it's an interesting topic that Richard put across around future of work. But Richard, before I even move to future of work, and I'll just probably take a far more technology view to the future of work. I think what we've done is we've seen over a period of time, right? If you look at a 10-year horizon, what we've really seen is organizations that have been able to harness technology and harness data are essentially the organizations that differentiate between laggards, and the leaders, right? And of course, the laggards are no longer there in the industry at all, right? So the future of work essentially applies to organizations that are going to be out there in the future in the first place, right? And having said that, I think organizations that are able to invest in technology and be on the cutting edge of technology are organizations that need to essentially future-proof technology, right? I don't think anyone over here has the luxury to kind of keep investing in technologies with new and new things coming up, right? So we're talking about AI today, we're talking about blockchain today, and there is a barrage of technologies that is already out there to come in, right? So I think the need of the hour is essentially to future-proof ourselves from upcoming technology so that new technology just comes into the organization without having to kind of do long projects, right? The other ability, about future of work, is that it's going to be more and more simplified, right? But if you look at our supply chains today, there are so many moving parts. It's just slightly difficult to believe that it can be even simplified. But I think the future of work essentially is going to be an era where the supply chain has slightly far more moving parts as opposed to what it's today. So if you just take a cue from the automobile industry, I think things are moving towards far more smaller number of parts to essentially make an automobile car, right? I think the same thing is going to happen for future supply chains as well. So I think it's only in our interest to kind of make sure that we are able to look at the entire value chain and look at opportunities where we can really add value both internally and externally. And cue from what we talked about innovation as well. I think innovation has to move from whatever it is today, right? So if you look at innovation, a lot of us believe that any incremental innovation is great innovation, right? But I think that incremental innovation really has to move higher to radical innovation, right? So, I just want to kind of summarize a few things. Radical innovation, future-proofing, the technologies, and essentially that's something that's going to drive the future of work. Just wanted to keep it short, and we can have discussions later.
Thanks very much.
Richard,
So,
when you
yes.
talk about future of work, I just wanted to say that I never predicted that I would be doing supply chain in my life ever when I was doing in my college. I've never heard of this word called supply chain when I was doing my college, and I don't know how many of my colleagues of my vintage ever imagined that. I'm sure, there was nothing called supply chain which was being taught in those days. So it's going to be as unpredictable as it is for us, and I would leave only one thought, that it is not as scary as it would be. Yeah?
Yeah, no, it's interesting how, in the supply chain world I work in, we have a lot of chemical engineers.
Indeed.
You think, surely when they set out to do chemical engineering, they weren't thinking they were going to go into supply chain.
Yeah.
But it seems to be a connection between those two worlds.
Yeah.
And I think now, so if you talk to universities about this, they say the brand is starting to happen in education. In fact, we were mooting the idea of saying maybe we should stop talking about supply chains and start talking about supply networks. And people said, no, we're just getting the supply chain brand. Let's stick with that for the time being.
Yeah.
But it wasn't something that was on people's radar 10, 15 years ago.
Yes.
And I think now it is. But I think the question is, what will a job in supply chain look like?
So how many of you, so what kind of job you are looking for? So how many of you are CEOs in the company? Only one? Two. I believe every one of you are the CEO of the company. The full form of CEO is Customer Experience Officer. Who will give the experience to the customer? Supply chain guy, right? Logistics guy. Nowadays, the earlier if you'll see, the guys were, or the companies were focusing on branding and product and all. Nowadays, everybody is focusing on supply chain. Maximum investment is coming in the technology, improving the technology in the supply chain. So, and if you'll see with what we are buying, if again going back to Flipkart, Amazon and everybody, you're buying Apple phone, you can buy it from anybody, right? It's the same cost. Apple will give their phone to the same cost to all this organization. But once this deal is over, you'll find Amazon has done maximum 30 billion or 20 billion kind of revenue. How come? The final deal or final impression and final sale is managed by nowadays by supply chain logistics guy. So you are the future CEOs who will turn around the game of the complete organization. Any organization will not able to survive or get maximum revenue if you CEOs will not perform your duties timely and efficiently. So you are I tell you, one of the organization, in past organization, my CEO, he put our KPIs very clearly. He called sales directors, 6 business heads, and then I was there. So we all were ex-com. He said, new orders KPIs are with sales, repeat order KPIs are with Deepak Sharma, supply chain. If customers are happy, well experienced, they will give us repeat orders. If they're not happy, because our product is good. But differentiator is your experience, last mile experience or delivery experience. So what we started doing, we started meeting all our customers. Once orders in the system, we said sales team, go for next orders, forget, we will handle this order. The day we'll receive the order, from that day till delivery, meeting customer, planning with them, planning the delivery, what day, which delivery and all, we were talking to their supply chain team. And listen, customer is what? In customer is again a supply chain. Who released the order from customer? Who convinced the management in the customer is supply chain guy. So he's the guy and you are the guy, you are from the same fraternity. You can manage your supply chain guy sitting in customer. It means you can manage customer in better way than any sales and marketing guy.
Deepak, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Prasad, can I pass it over to you?
Yeah, right. So before I put my thoughts, so I have a question for audience. So audience, are you ready for a question? So recently Gartner has published who are the top 25 supply chain organizations and where they are busy. So have you seen that article? Have you read that article? If you are read, please wave your hand, please. Yeah, very few hands, and I think there is a commonality between what the article reads and what what they describe, where top 25 supply chains are busy, and the mission what you have shown in Ikigai diagram, which talks about the first priority for this industry will be what society needs or what is the environment needs. and what is the world needs. And why it is important in India, because all of us knows that logistics industry is the 4th largest sector in terms of providing employment. So, you know, we also contribute to about 10 to 13% of GDP. So what is important is that whatever we do for our employees will be very important for the country. And you know, from that point of view, you know, what is important, again, if you look at the challenges what we have in the industry is that, you know, how do you inculcate the safe behavior? Because if you look at the road accidents, about 20% of the road accidents happen because of the commercial vehicles. About 25% of the, this pollution happens because of the commercial vehicles. So how can we actually think of innovation in that space? You know, how can we innovate? How can we probably, you know, be the first to use electrical vehicles for commercial purpose? I think that's the need for the time for the society. From environment point of view, you know, as some Deepak said that, you know, what is important is that we contribute major role, we play a major role in managing or recycling the plastic, or maybe doing a zero landfill for the plastic or the waste what we generate. So we play a very important role. In terms of, you know, using our resources, like, you know, electricity is the one of the major component which is required in logistic industry. How do you use, you know, a renewable source of energies? How do you use natural lights in our warehouses? How do you use solar panels in our warehouses? How you use IoTs for maintaining your air conditioning systems? Because, you know, you can do air conditioning system at a lower cost if you use IoTs. How can you use even IoTs for monitoring your cold storages? So there is a technology available. There is a technology available for recycling the plastic, of using this again for the landfill or for constructing the road. So there is where we are playing a very important role. So that's first part. What is the best for environment and the society? And the second part is what is the best for the customers. So what is the best for customer is actually how do you map your network? How do you move closer to the customer in terms of deploying your products, and in terms of collecting back the information from the customer. So how do you move closer to the customer will define on your network. And while you are building the network, what is important is that you can also include many value-added services to your customer. You know, what is that value-added services you can add is customer service, you know, managing your entire order to cash process. How do you touch base with the customer? How do you collect their experiences? How do you build that back into the system through the knowledge of information and the technology? Second is how do you improvise on the customer service in terms of reducing the lead times, optimizing on the cost, and giving them access in your system so that you're very transparent. And when you're moving product, when the product will be available, and what's the issues, how can you resolve? And third is on looking at the cost, because as you move forward with the network optimization, there is a plenty of opportunity to work with 3PL, 4PL service providers where they have multi-client based facilities where you can leverage on the technology. There are technologies, superior technologies available, you know, like TMS, you know, because if you look at where TMS will be required, you have about 1500 plus transportation lanes, you have about 3000 plus customers, you have 40,000 plus code. It's humanly impossible to design a system which will optimize cost, which will optimize customer service, and which will optimize the lead time. So there are good systems available, you know, like transport management system, whereby you can build your network. They will be actually like autonomous centralized transportation system which we can build. You can look at some of the advantages of WMS, because, you know, most of the time you spent in material, in probably allocating the material. How can you use WMS? There are a lot of information available, a lot of dashboards which are available to help you to improve your efficiencies and the productivity, which will finally end up into optimizing your cost for the customer and improvising the customer service. So two basic principles for designing your future logistics. One is what is best for environment and the society, and what is best for the customer, and how to use technology to, you know, enhance on both these services. That's my thought.
Thank you. Yeah, so very interesting themes, and they're going to be key. In a minute, we're on to move on and talk about warehousing to bring in the gentleman who hasn't spoken yet. But before that, you had asked just to make an interjection, please.
Just a thought on the future of work is that, you see, what technology is doing and has done in Industry 4.0 also, it has taken out the rote, the lower end jobs and the repetitive jobs out of the system, but it has introduced into itself a lot of value adding work which will give premium to the workforce themselves. If I'll just give you an example. When we did this machine iotization, one of it was that there was a moving vehicle, and it had to test the soil and therefore cut through it several meters deep. So it could be rocky, it could be soil, it could be watery. Now, earlier the driver would have its, a sense of the location, and then it would drive. Today, because of sensorization, it can understand the depth to which the soil formation is, and then cut through it. Now, my question was, when I was interacting and looking through this entire process, was that how is the driver going to interpret those entire inputs? Now, here itself, technology itself come to the help to make technology more simple. So what it has done is a human-machine interface. It's like a video game. So what the driver sees now is just it sees it's like a video game, and you're just driving through it. It's like an autonomous driving system. It doesn't have to do. It doesn't have to think about. It's sort of reduced his work, made it more intelligent, and made it more safer, yet productive and efficient. So I think that is what the technology is going to do. What I see increasingly is that there will be a lot of aggregation of the work, the consolidation, the coordination part of it, the analytics part of it is what will absorb a large number of the workforce into its fold. And I believe that like we have passed through the Industry 4.0, we will also be I think ready for this change. And if you see the Uber drivers also, the way they have, the people who are not even literate, they are actually now looking through the entire apps, going through the entire systems, and even educating the customers, the elderly people also who are coming into their cars to educate them to how they can use their app. So I think the future, as you said, is bright. There's nothing, nothing to worry about. It's only give a lot of premium and safety and productivity going forward, which is good for logistics.
That's very.
Only just one factor that can take about. While technology is going to be making life simpler, but that there is a change involved, right? So that is where I think all the organizations have to reskill people. So far that we are more interested there in generating insights there out of information. In future, I would see that will be a done thing, whether it is there through robotics or whatever it is.
Two interesting themes I've seen on this is a lot of supply chain conferences, you hear two things. One is people worrying about AI taking all our jobs. On the other side, everyone's saying, but our real problem is we can't find the right people, we haven't got enough good people. So these seem to be slightly conflicting. And I don't know if any of the chess players here, you will know that Garry Kasparov got beaten by Big Blue a few years ago. Now, what he did very admirably, in my view, was instead of going into a sulk, which he might have done, is he said, this is interesting. Now, what if I was to take a human being and an ordinary computer and play against a supercomputer? And they developed this idea of chess centaurs. So I don't know if anyone's familiar with this. A centaur was this mythical animal which had the body and head of a human being and the legs of a horse. And so the idea is you're going to have people who are using the things that we're really good at, which is this intuitive, forward-thinking stuff, but having a computer in the background taking care of sort of crunching historical data and doing all sorts of diagnosis. So I think my view is that the supply chain planner of the future is going to have this very sort of symbiotic relationship with technology. It's going to help us, but it's not going to remove our jobs. But you're absolutely right. It's going to be a change in the kind of work we do. And in the best case, it's going to make our jobs more interesting rather than less interesting. We'll spend less time curating data and more time thinking about decisions. Okay, so now I'd like to move on and bring in this gentleman at the end, sorry, Sugato.
So I'll introduce myself because I came in a little late.
Yes.
So I'm Shogoto Shom. I work with Future Supply Chains, and it's a 3PL. And as one of the panelists was saying, when we were studying and we were looking at the future, we never heard of something called supply chain, right? So my entry into supply chain was accidental, and my entry into the 3PL was also accidental.
Sorry, Sugato, the theme that I'd like to discuss is to bring you, and then to have Srinivath come in as well, would be to talk about the future of warehousing. So we're on this sort of automation theme, so if you could just cover that. Yeah.
So, being in the 3PL, over the past few years, we have actually seen the change that technology has brought in, and the change that the industry has actually seen. So there were 3 years back when we were discussing with the clients, people were reluctant to talk about WMS because it brought in a lot of complications and a little higher cost, etc. So in India, in warehousing and in supply chain, technology is always looked at as something that will reduce cost, right? Now the conundrum has to change from something that will reduce cost to something which will increase value. Once you look at that, all technologies become feasible. For example, when you use a WMS, right? Earlier warehouses, they were flatbed warehouses. You depended on people to find out where the stocks are lying. But in warehouses of today, where you have thousands of locations, right? We have warehouses where we have 100,000 bin locations, 5,000 pallet locations. It is virtually impossible for a person at the warehouse to remember where what is kept. And that is where a WMS comes in, right? You have 5,000 trucks moving across the country. Impossible for somebody to manually keep a track of what is happening. You can have a call center, you can have everything. So that is where a TMS comes in, right? So when you talk about from a warehouse perspective, the technologies that have come in over the last few years, right, they have now become part and parcel of any offering that we do today and part and parcel of any requirement that the customer has today. So today, a requirement of a customer comes with an implicit understanding that a 3PL will have a WMS and a TMS. Why? Because slowly people have understood that that actually adds value and not cost, right? The moment you look at absolute cost, all the technologies go out of the window. For example, as a supply chain partner of Future Group, we have set up one of the most modern sorters in Nagpur warehouse. It cost a bomb, right? About 60 crores or something. But with the volumes that we are able to take out through that sorter, it's about 1 lakh pieces per day, 3 crore pieces per month. So probably in 20 months, we are going to cover up the cost, right, of the investment. But then you have to have that vision of the volumes. So technology today in warehousing is all about volumes, right? You want to put in a sorter, you want to put in a conveyor. It is going to bring in more efficiency. It is going to reduce your time. And that happens only across large volumes, right? So as a 3PL, the day a 3PL will have large volumes all across customers, then the challenge becomes in a WMS and TMS, how do you ensure that multiple customers are functioning? If you want to build in a sorter, which has a huge capacity, how do you ensure that you change from one customer to the other at the end of the day or end of the shift? Can you use multiple customers on the same sorter, right? Now sorting is becoming very, very important as a technology. Why? Because the ability to piece pick in terms of especially apparels is becoming very, very critical. Not only in forward, in also reverse, and more complicated in reverse because the ability of somebody to get back stocks, sort them into different categories, and then send it back to the customers after refinishing needs a lot of technology, a lot of intervention, which was still probably a couple of years back manual. So slowly people are getting into the understanding that technology is important, and that is how it is affecting at the back end. Now, if you look at the technologies inside the warehouse, we talk about a lot of things. We talk about automation, we talk about IoT, we talk about artificial intelligence. So at the end of the day, as somebody was saying, it's more about the customer. So whatever you are doing, do you really bring in technology for the sake of the technology, or do you bring in the technology for the sake of the customer? I think that is more important to understand. You can have a lot of technology. Does it help the customer in terms of cost and efficiency? Does it help you to bring down the cost of supply chain for your client? I think once you are able to clearly identify that, technologies become clearly visible. For example, what is disruptive today, probably over the last 1 year, and it will be disruptive over the next couple of years, is Internet of Things. The ability to get data from anywhere across, right? For example, simple example, online POD updation, right? Usually in the industry what happens, the driver goes, will deliver, take a signature, the POD will come back, then only you can confirm that the goods have been delivered. For example, if you go to deliver in Cochin or Northeast, which takes 10-15 days to deliver, the driver will come back after 5 days or 10 days, and then only you will be able to confirm and say that yes, it is delivered. Against that, an Amazon would probably go, you would sign on the document, and within 2 seconds or 5 seconds, if there is connectivity, you know that it is delivered and it is updated. So Internet of Things, sensors on cold chain vehicle movements, right? You know where the temperature is going, you immediately call up the driver and say, hey, what the heck is happening, right? You can actually save a lot of money in cold chain by using sensors. So Internet of Things is something that is coming already disrupting. right? And it is changing the game. Going ahead, you look at 3D printing, right? 3D printing is probably the biggest disruptor that we will see. We have been talking about it for some time, but it is starting to take shape now. And that is one single technology that will probably bring in wide-ranging and sweeping changes. I'll give you an example. For example, small parts, delivery of small parts. You need a lot of inventory today at different places, because you don't know. You depend on the planning given by the supply chain managers based on their understanding of the market demand. Now connect it to a scenario where tomorrow your customer has a smartphone on his hand, he knows what to order, what type to order, he gives you an order on the system that is connected to your 3D printer at your nearest delivery point, and you only have to keep raw materials and a 3D printing machine. It prints you that part or that object, and it delivers to you maybe in next 24 hours.
Sugato, that's a very nice example. Can I
Now,
stop you there?
You cut out inventory, you cut out transportation cost, you reduce pollution. It's a huge thing,
Yes.
So these are technologies inside warehousing and in supply chain that would probably help change the game in the next few years to come.
Thank you very much. Srinivas.
Coincidentally, I happen to be a robotics engineer. Yeah, I mastered it in those days when nobody was studying robotics, and I never realized that robotics could be applied in warehousing as well. Yeah, the only concept which I learned in those days as a mechanical engineer of an assembly line, which Henry Ford taught to this world, is on an assembly line, the job should be moving, the person should be stationary. Yeah, we're actually trying to bring an assembly line concept, which is exactly what he spoke about in terms of sorters. The jobs are moving and getting sorted automatically onto logistics, onto warehousing. So these are the trends which I see, which will actually help, the basic stuff of actually let the job move, let the person be stationary, improve the productivity of the person, and have some more robotics. So these are some of the trends which will be there. Other than that, of course, my colleague already on the panel who spoke, I don't want to dwell too much on this particular bit in terms of automation of warehousing and so on and so forth.
But
Yeah.
If I can ask you, Srinivas, what do you think about the drones? How is it going to affect warehousing and logistics? And
So
we are seeing
drones
a lot of use.
Drones would be more on delivery than the logistics inside the warehouse itself, because within the warehouse it's far more controlled environment, and therefore it will be automatic guided vehicles and ASRS warehouses which we have. And one more thing which is important, which he just spoke, and he said that technology for the sake of technology is not something which is good or useful, but we also cannot forget that the amount of work which can be done in the short space of given square footage in that particular warehouse using a sorting system, sorting 1 lakh pieces a day ain't possible impossibly by putting human beings on it. Yeah. So if you were to put an ROI into the whole topic, then you have to actually see the real estate value of the people and the whole 9 yards. Because fortunately in India we have a 1.3 billion population, and they also need to be employed. We don't want growth which is jobless, and but yet it has to be meaningful growth. So my submission on drones would be more in the delivery, in the last mile delivery, rather than within the warehouse campus. Yeah.
Okay, great. Thank you very much. Thank you. Yeah, I actually was involved in a project in Africa using drones, and we can see that they might be usable, but it's trying to find out specifically where they can be useful. And in this case, they could solve the problem of blood transfusions in a very, very difficult geography in Rwanda, where you need to get a very specific product very quickly to a very specific, very difficult to get to destination. I think this is also possibly for snakebite serum, for this kind of emergency, very specific things. It definitely will have a role to play. I mean, we're starting to see people, Amazon are using it to deliver packages, which I think kind of, okay, you can do it, but whether you should is another question. We could afford to wait a day for whatever it is we've ordered on Amazon. But for critical services where lives are at risk, I think they do have a role to play. So a lot about the segmentation of the supply chain is trying to work out how to use the appropriate technology to solve the problem.
Just to add one line, like what on 3D, it's a clear example, like British Telecom asked something from us, and we were working on the mold and designing something, and we sent it to them. During the review, they asked some changes, and then we were worrying how to take it back, do the changes, and again sending by courier and all, and they were asking next day. They said, we will give the order next day if we'll deliver it. What we did, we used the same 3D design. In the UK itself, it did it with the 3D design. We gave it to them and got the order. So that's the beauty of 3D technology.
Okay. So we have about 5 minutes left. So we've covered quite a range of topics here. I have one last topic up my sleeve, but before I pull that one out, I wondered if anybody from the audience would like to direct a question to anybody here on the panel. No pressure, but it'd be nice to have one question. I see a hand.
Somebody
You see
back
a hand?
over there.
Okay, could you
Can
get
you
a
pass on
microphone
the
to the
mic
gentleman
there?
over there?
Yeah.
Even louder?
No, that's getting a mic.
Achha.
I think
Right,
he's
they're-
getting the
they're
mic
on their
across,
way.
yeah.
And whatever companies that we are referring to or whatever facilities in the what we are referring to are more to the duration of last 3 to 5 years. But most of us deal with business which are established far older. We have our supply chains which is well established. So there are two challenges that we face typically in this. One is getting the technology invested in the old set of things that we are already running in. Second, getting people the adaptability of the technology for two reasons. One, obviously we have said the loss of job which they anticipate. Second, the kind of apprehension that they have for getting themselves, so to say, exposed, right? So the luxury or the inefficiencies which they were operating with would get exposed, and probably they might want to put more efforts, as would be their apprehensions. So I just want to have an idea of the panel as to overcome, because I think while the new businesses and the new aspects of supply chain are growing in the companies in the last 3 or 5 years, but then there's a huge chunk, maybe more to the extent of 90% plus, which is still lying in the traditional way of supply chain. So how do we retrofit and ensure that the technology adaptability is fastest to ensure that we take the entire set on board with the new technology?
Okay. Any volunteers?
I can take this. So I will hope I am audible. Yeah, so I'll try to answer, because we are also from manufacturing industry and we are operating for 70 plus years. So I think one of the best opportunity what we have is today, post GST implementation, because earlier our network was based on tax optimization. So now if you look at, there is an opportunity that how can you develop a new structure which is closer to your customer? While you are designing a new structure, there is an opportunity that you can work with the vendors who are already having this kind of technology with them. So as you migrate from your old, to new kind of warehouses, there will be service provider who are available with having those kind of warehouses. They have built in this infrastructure for multiple clients. It's a multi-client based structure, so that you can leverage on the scale of economy, and you can also work and advance your technology with them, by partnering with them. So I think this is the first opportunity what we have, and we can work on that. And actually they will help you. So it's not necessary you have to have all the skills within your organization. Your business partners can bring those skill sets and help you to implement those things. And I can say that we are working on a FARAI system for building the entire visibility in our material movement, and they are helping us to build this capability along with the dashboards what we are looking for. So there are service provider 3PL, 4PL, you can go up to 10PL and work on their competencies to build this.
So,
And I think just to add one point here, to break your question to two parts. One part you talk about the technology itself and how can we make it agile, or how can we retrofit into it. And the second, you talk about the adoption along the larger workforce, right? So just to look at this in two views. Firstly, when we talk about the technology itself, I would say that one of the crucial mistakes that we see a lot of companies doing is that they look at something which works elsewhere, which is a pure iterative process, right? That this part of the technology I'll fix right now, then I'll fix this, then I'll fix that. But with supply chain and logistics, because it's so interconnected across the entire value chain, while you might take steps incrementally, your roadmap or your vision needs to be 360 degrees, right? Because otherwise you might start fixing something with a duct tape here, but cause a leak somewhere else, right? So you're just shifting the bottlenecks. The second thing is that the one biggest thing that ERPs or digital solutions post, what they want to do is be your single source of truth, right? And that's what gets disconnected whenever we are talking about building technologies only for the organization. Now it has to be across the value chain. It has to inculcate your 3PLs. It has to inculcate your customers. Everyone needs to be speaking the same language for basically that technology to work. That is what will then bring in the agility, right? So that, as Deepak was mentioning, that maybe Amazon comes to me and says, as a logistics provider, that I want same-day delivery tomorrow. Now, what does that mean to me? How do I deploy a system so quickly to give Amazon that same-day delivery? And if I don't, then maybe my competitor will, and while it takes me time to build that into my tech, I've already lost that business. So that's one part of the technology, that is making it all-encompassing whenever you're making changes and making it agile. And the second part, very quickly, is about the adoption part of it. And I think over here, it's very important. If you think back when we were doing production manually, right, on the production line, and soon after that, what happened is that your industrial revolution came and your CNCs and your NCs came in. Did they come in to replace the workforce, or did they come in to empower the workforce? So similarly, all of these tools, and it would be foolhardy for anyone today to say, I'm not going to invest in these technologies. So you want these technologies to come in to empower your workforce to be able to do that activity better. And it's important when you do this to make it user-friendly, which Richard was talking about in his slides, that if I have a delivery boy who was doing deliveries of pizzas before as well, why is he going to use that app? He's only going to use it if it's going to make his job easier, and if you can bring in some amount of user interface into it. If we can make Candy Crush using gamification, make it one of the best games in the world, why can't we use that same kind of gamification for our internal workforce? So these are, I know we're running out of time, so I don't want to extend it. These are certain things that can definitely be brought in to help reevaluate or revolutionize the technologies.
So thank you very much for that question, and thanks everyone for their attention. Thank you, panelists, for excellent answers. There's obviously a lot to talk about here, so I can see many more conversations over the next 2 days.
Thank you so much. Before our moderator and panelists leave the stage, we've got a couple of highlights today, actually. We want to welcome on the stage right now Raj Saxena to join us from Logistics Now. Logistics is all about the network, they say. And if you remember that movie from Hollywood, which released a couple of years ago, called Avatar, well, the network connected the tribes and led them to victory. The time has now come for an equally powerful information network for logistics. So ladies and gentlemen, Logistics Now gives you Lorry, the logistics intelligence and rating platform. We're going to be launching the white paper right here. We're going to request our moderator and all our panelists to do us the honors. So gentlemen and ma'am, could you please stand up as we present each one of you with the white paper. And can we please have Yes, we've got the white paper being brought up onto stage. We're going to request Mr. Lloyd to do us the honors.
Okay.
Lorry enables companies and logistics providers to find their best fit partner, leverage actionable insights to drive savings and service. Ladies and gentlemen, please put your hands together for the white paper Lorry.
Like this.
To know more about them, make sure that you head on over to their booth number 5. Congratulations, the launch of Lorry. We'd like to thank all our panelists. And now we've got a beautiful memento for each one of our panelists. Ladies and gentlemen, to know more about Lorry, booth number 5 is where you're going to head and ask them all the questions and queries that you have. Congratulations, Mr. Saxena. All the very best. Well, ladies and gentlemen, our panelists and moderator continue to be with us on stage because we have a beautiful memento for each one of you. We're going to request Mr. Harish Bhatia to kindly join us on stage. Our mementos are being brought up. We're going to request Mr. Richard Lloyd, our moderator, to do us the honors and present a memento to each one of our panelists. A memento for Mr. Deepak Sharma from Sterlite Technologies Limited. Thank you for your presence and your contribution on stage. Thank you very much. Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Deepak Sharma. We'll also like to thank Mr. Srinivas Rao Nandigam from Sun Pharmaceuticals Industries Limited. Thank you very much, sir. Ms. Suparna Singh from Larsen & Toubro Limited. Thank you very much for your time and contribution on this panelist. Congratulations, Ms. Suparna Singh. We present a memento to Mr. Shogata Shom from Future Supply Chain Solutions. Thank you for your presence here, sir. Mr. Jagdish Kanche from ITC Limited. We'd also like to say a big thank you to Mr. Prasad Shinde from Johnson & Johnson. Thank you, Mr. Suryansh Jalan from Far Eye Transportation. And the final memento to Mr. Kunal Shah from Oracle India. Ladies and gentlemen, we're going to do this slightly differently. We want to thank our moderator. We're going to request one of our panelists, Mr. Deepak Sharma, to do us the honors and present the memento to Mr. Richard Lloyd, Director, O9 Solutions UK. Beautifully moderated, sir. Thank you so much. That was a tight, engaging panel discussion. We're going to capture